to understand, why we might have bike parking in public facilities. It's certainly not unprecedented. You see in the downtown with the city's parking structures, we actually have bike parking in them, and it's very much tied to these as public facilities, and the Park One's philosophy. If this is where vehicles can come and park to access various destinations within the plan, you have a facility here that, bike parking should have sort of that similar use. And, like I said, in the downtown, all of the city structures have bike parking in them. And it's something that, that was the thought process of having them in the zoning code, where you have parking facilities.
When I most recently was at the parking structure 6, and I looked at that room that's near the vehicle entry, it seemed woefully underutilized. Has that been the general observation across the downtown?
It's hard pictures themselves. I mean, I know from my personal experience, I've used, the bike parking there because it's easy and it's accessible and it's sort of in the middle of everything. I'm not sure in 6 whether we intended to expand, more bike center type facilities, but you can certainly see where we had the bike center integrated into parking structures, number 8 and 1, if I'm going the right way. Those are very, very much well used, in terms of bike facilities. And again, it's a centralized area. And, this is something that this is not just a structure that's just sitting on its own. It's literally, 50 feet away from the expo station, that is tremendously underparked for bikes. I worked on the Expo Bike Pass, so I know the conversations we had with Metro in terms of trying to get more long-term parking around the stations, but the insistence of having sort of walkers as opposed to racks. I mean, those are things that the city's able to add in, but there's limited space on sidewalks and what have you. And if this is an opportunity to encourage those shared modes by saying, hey, if you walk 50 feet south there, or there's a bunch of bike parking over there. I think we foresee that is certainly a possibility for bike riders, to have that bike parking reservoir.
And I would just add on parking structure 6, that area you're talking about for the bikes, I believe there's some unfunded access requirements that haven't been implemented quite yet. So that's why that hasn't been used yet.
I see. So people might want to park there and they don't have the opportunity to.
Yeah.
Okay. And just for the commission's understanding, are bike parking requirements, is there an opportunity for variance, much like there is a parking variance opportunity for vehicles or automobiles?
That would be defined in the municipal code. You have to look at the municipal code and see if there's any waivers for bike parking. I know for vehicles, for parking reductions, there might be some for vehicles, but you'd have to look at the municipal code to see.
Okay, and now I'll circle back to the requirements for the treatment of the facade and visual access to parking areas.
May I ask a follow-up, though? So the split between the long-term and the short-term bike parking, and that's consistent with the zoning code as well?
Correct.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, so I believe the screening you were talking about, the guidelines in the Bergamot area plan, it's a guideline, a parking design guideline. It's on page 196 of the Bergamot area plan. It's under C, and it says that that screens shall be provided to exposed parking floors, and that you can use architectural skins to actually reduce impact from noise, and then also from light that might be penetrating as well, or penetrating through. But so it's more of a design guideline.
Right.
So there's flexibility there. It's not a standard per se.
So they're going after what is suggested in the plan.
Correct. They're trying to follow the actual Bergamot area plan.
And to my way of looking at it, they may have been perhaps guided in the wrong direction by this guideline because it has produced a facade that's really not, I don't consider it to be pedestrian friendly. And so, I would when we get to the deliberation part, I would like to raise the question of whether some kind of, a more relaxed view toward that would not only, potentially improve pedestrian access inside the structure, but also would make it a more inviting and potentially safer structure. I doubt that this guideline was considering the specific case where it was a public parking facility where you want to know what's going on the other side there, and it should be identifiably a parking structure, and having that visual access into what's going on the other side of the wall makes a lot of sense. But we will get to that. And I think, let me just double check, I think those were my questions of staff. Oh, I did did I understand correctly, Commissioner Fresco, that there was a lot coverage, that some lot coverage requirement was a part of this? Because I missed that.
Yeah, I think there might have been some confusion on that. They are well under their floor lake area ratio, the FAR, for what's allowed for that site. What they're actually taking is what the Bergamot area plan allows for, the flexible development standard to exceed the maximum building floor plate. And the building floor plate for this project is actually defined as the actual ground floor. And the reason they're asking for that exceeding of that ground floor, it's sort of highlighted in the actual, I believe we highlighted in the staff report. Just for my clarification, I just want to make sure I'm telling you the right information. But it's on page 16 of the staff report under maximum building floor plate. We basically state that although the footprint of the actual parking garage exceeds that area, the actual large footprint is required to accommodate for the actual parking garage use. It would be sort of impossible to try to fit the actual slopes and the actual functionality and the actual internal circulation of that garage if we were to try to reduce that area.
I see.
So
I remember the
Yeah.
floor plate part of it.
Correct. So
I see
they're
lot
asking for that
coverage as a
flexible
different-
development standard. It's not really
Right.
a lot coverage issue though. No.
Got it. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
You have a question? Commissioner Newbold.
Is it an actual condition in here that 135 spaces be available? 'Cause
Yeah,
I can't find it.
Well, it's on page, go ahead and go to the STOA. It's on the back end. It's under page 33 of the STOA. Conformance with approved plans is condition number 11.
Oh,
It's saying that
I see
as,
it. It's right
as
there.
part of the project
Yep.
description, that they
Okay.
keep 135 unreserved. Correct.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'm ready to entertain a motion if someone would care to make it.
I move that we approve, and that I would entertain that you make a minor revision with some sort of reference to a curated art piece that we would add to the text, right? Maybe you should come up with something that you feel would do the job, since you were the one who raised that idea, and the developer seems to like that idea. So maybe you can say a few words and we'll tack them on.
I'll let staff kind of work out those words, but I think something about curation and something about rotation is if conceptually staff gets that,
I'll second.
I'd be okay with them.
Do you want to give us a sense of time, or
I'd say at least quarterly. That seems super flexible to me.
And there's nothing in here that would preclude them from using that curated and rotated art space if they decided they wanted to do some, I don't know, somebody wanted to use it as a little jewelry workshop, they could do that in that space.
And I think
No, that's when I. Well,
then it would be a performance
He
space.
said the height is big enough so that you could put a little retail space in there if the street changed, and I actually think that would be so much cooler in the long run. So I don't want to have anything in here that would preclude that if it's allowed. So that's I just want to make sure we don't.
It's
Tie their hands.
if it's a permitted use and the applicant wants to do that, they're not tied to having it as an art space. It's if they have the art, then
Okay.
there would be these.
that's a great way to do it, Jane. Great.
Yeah.
Is there any further comment? Your mic. Commissioner Fresco.
I'm still a little bit concerned about the office use in the tenant space and how we can inspire that to be. I mean, I'm not sure there's a market for anything more exciting there right now, but is there anything you can think of? Help me with this. I'm not good with the conditions.
I'm not even sure where you're headed.
I'm concerned that it's not going to be a very active street face. It's going to be boxes piled in front of windows, kind of office, because it's going to be such a small office. So,
Could you put the 26th Street side up there so we can? Yeah. Because that's the side you're talking about.
it is, and you know,
There.
currently it's split into two sections. And in the staff report, it says that about 250 square feet would be the parking management office. So, you know, I guess that's where the guy who talks to you when you press the help button and the machine sits. So, you know, he's pretty exciting. And then the other half, I guess
We have to condition it so they hire a clown.
You know, I'm just concerned, you know, we spend a lot of time about active uses on the street fronts, and these are not active uses, and I'm not sure how to, I mean, I don't want to condition it to a failed business either,
Right.
but I'm just really don't see a lot of stuff happening.
I guess my instinct is that the market is going to have to take care of this one because I don't know.
I guess that's
You know,
it.
I mean, if something goes in there, they're gonna be motivated to put something in there because they want to get rent, and we have parameters of the kinds of things that can go in there, right, to try to keep it active. So they're gonna. I feel like it's kind of tricky, and it's kind of a tricky space, and it may not be great for a while, but maybe eventually.
Someday.
And I think they're going to be the most motivated to make it. That's my instinct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree that, you know, you have to view this in terms of a major transit stop, and that once all the kind of the first effects of the expo line start to settle in, and businesses start to grow there, and newspaper stands and florist stores, that, you know, these are small things that often animate a street that are small, fine grain. You've spoken about this, and this is about as small grain as you can get. But doesn't mean it can't
It's
work.
isolated. It's just one small group.
Yeah, but it's very close to, you know, 4,000 people an hour pumping through there. Not all of them will go down 26th Street, but there's a lot of them wandering around nearby. And then likewise, the bike, I think the bike storage, ironically, if it's part of a first and last mile strategy, the ratio might be the other way around, where the long-term storage, where people parks it for a whole day, takes the train to downtown, then comes back and rides the last quarter mile, half mile home. You could see how that might also work in terms of how we have a lot of bikes there, and maybe they're not in the best location. Like the small store is not optimal, but it's still a good thing overall.
Commissioner Perry.
I guess for someone as staff, do we have the ability to limit the use?
Yeah,
What uses can go in there?
we were just looking at that. So as part of the development review permit, there's a list of permitted uses. This is a code compliant project. So we couldn't just arbitrarily prohibit, uses that are permitted in the Bergamot Transit Village. I hear concerns about offices, but that is a permitted use, less than 5,000 square feet in the BTV zone. So just advise you of that.
So even in the context of the project failing to meet the development standards that are laid out within the plan, and those development standards are there to encourage an engaging pedestrian environment, even in that case, we can't go into the uses to achieve the same end.
The only thing I would note that in the development review permit section, it does say that one of the things that you can look at is the location of proposed uses. So it's not dictating what uses can be done, but where that can be done within the context of the development.
So in the situation where someone's proposed some office use, we could say yes, you can do that, just not there. Is that,
Provided that it's connected to general welfare and there's a connection so that there's a rational basis for requiring some condition in your permit.
okay. So I think this should come back to us. I think that the way that the project relates to 26th Street has a number of issues, and in most cases, they are things that I think that some kind of language to ARB asking them to take a look at would be sufficient. But in this case, we are being asked to make findings related to the flexible design standards, and because that is a part of this discussion, I think that we should have those issues resolved at this level, at the Planning Commission, and from there go on to ARB. So, my concerns are about how, these blank walls along 26, there's particularly on the west end of that elevation, there's very little that is engaging to the pedestrian coming from light rail. I think this issue of visual access inside is a significant one, and I'm strangely, I find myself a fan of this project, even though it has above grade parking, and I want it to move forward, but I think it should move forward where it's properly addressing the 26th Street elevation, where we can say this is an appropriate way to be flexible with these development standards.
Commissioner Fundamental.
And you don't think ARB can do that? For some reason, you feel their hands are tied. Only we can. Could we instruct them to look at that elevation and make it more transparent, penetrable, however you want it to be? I'm asking. Is there something that we have to do the ARB can't?
Well, I think it raises an interesting question of if we say that we can be flexible with the design standard or the development standards, does that lock it in some way when it does go to ARB, or does ARB have a tremendous amount of flexibility once it goes there? It goes to that point, and I would direct that question to staff.
The ARB's jurisdiction is never to negate what the Planning Commission entitles. So, you can think of what the commission does is you sort of set like the envelope, and the ARB can't go sort of beyond that. They can shape the project within that envelope. They can't, for example, if you had setbacks or building envelopes, however they can't have something that goes outside of what the Planning Commission has approved. That's not their jurisdiction, but they can certainly shape the project within what the Planning Commission has approved.
So if the solution ultimately involves reshaping the massing, reshaping the structure in some way, how it relates to the street, if that's what they come up with, that is an alternative that ARB may not have at its disposal.
I think what you're talking about, a lot of it is much more functional and more to do with the way the building works and less to do with, well, they're all design elements, but I don't think it's as visual and I just think it's at a higher level of functionality that I think it's worth seeing how it plays out when they have a chance to look at some of that stuff. I think we can do that much better. Maybe it won't be so scary as an office if it's designed differently or they have their brilliant light bulb idea.
I think if I also can provide more clarity regarding the flexible development standards that are being sought, these are not really related to the exterior skin of the building. They're really talking about ground floor to floor height, build 2 line, maximum building floor plate, those are things that, we wouldn't expect here. That's being proposed is about a 47,000 square foot floor plate. The ARB couldn't, approve like 49,000, for example. So I'm not sure that, the flexible development standards that are being asked for here may relate to the concerns that are being expressed about how the building relates to the street. ARB certainly has the ability to shape that. That's not really related to the flexible standards. So I just wanted to provide that clarity. Also, I wanted to clear up, looking at page 196, those are actually design guidelines. So they're guides, they're shoulds, not shalls. So, they don't have the force of a required standard. So there's, again, there is flexibility from that as long as the overall design objective is being met.
And Jean, to clarify, that's the guideline related to the screening.
The screening, that's right, yeah. If it doesn't make sense, then, as long as the general objective is being met, there's many different ways, of course, that you can meet objectives.
Commissioner Newbold.
I had wanted to add a ARB condition that I don't think it fully meets your concerns, but that talked about using some kind of permeability to create visual interest and to ask the ARB to use that as a way of continuing the design on the building, because I feel like that would make a big difference, both from feeling safe using the building, but also just to make it not look so dead. But I don't have a solution, but that was kind of the wording I was going to use as a condition I wanted to add to our motion. I'm wondering if you can add to that, or if you can elaborate on it to help you solve some of your concerns, or make a substitute motion.
Okay, well, I think that because we have findings related to the flexible design standards, I see that they need to deviate in order to achieve those goals that are laid out there. And as I think was mentioned earlier, that's not what they're doing here. They are dealing with an oddly shaped lot and just doing the best they can. But so I feel like the efforts need to generally be stepped up, particularly on that north elevation, in order for us to meet those flexible development standards. So I'll move that we ask them to come back and address the concerns that have been raised.
Second that.
So there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I guess I would just share that I'm disinclined to vote yes on that motion. I feel like the concerns that you've raised to me seem very much about design, and although this commission oftentimes gets very involved in design, really that is the purview and the expertise of the ARB. I would feel much more comfortable approving a motion that approves the project and gives direction to the ARB like we typically do, so that this project can move forward. I don't think that we're the proper body to address the outstanding concerns that we have. Any other comments? Okay, can we have a roll, right?
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi?
This is the amendment, right?
This
We're
is
voting.
the motion. This is the
His motion, not yours.
Commissioner Perry's motion.
Okay. I would incline to agree with you. I would vote no on that.
Are you doing a roll?
Was that a vote?
Yeah, that was okay.
So you
Commissioner
voted
Fonda
no?
Bernardi?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Newbold?
No.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Anderson?
No. So I believe we needed 4 votes and the motion doesn't carry. Is that correct? Okay. So now the main motion is before us. Commissioner Perry.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask staff if there's a motion to approve and it is and it fails, there's still opportunity for additional motions on the matter, correct? Yep.
Then I think we should move to the second stage, which is to instruct the ARB to look at the transparency of particularly the north elevation, but the other three that are possible too, that might bear some slight improvement.
Okay, so that's an amendment to the motion. Who was the seconder?
I was.
Are you okay with that
Yeah, because
amendment?
that was actually my amendment pretty
Okay.
much.
Are there any other amendments to the motion or directions to ARB?
I'm sorry, but I think we missed Commissioner
Well, I
Fonda
think you
Bernardi's.
were chit-chatting over there.
Yeah.
I think we had several. We had the rotation and the, I forgot the two shun words, but it was like the rotation of the art and the management of the art, and then addressing permeability. I like how you said it better than me, but addressing using some permeability to create more of an active. How did you say it? I liked how you said it.
It was just to make the facades more transparent. And all three facades might benefit from that, but particularly the north one needs the most work, because it's going to be the one seen the most, to be honest.
Commissioner Perry?
Yeah, I'm going to vote no against this, in just an additional reason that occurred to me is that, I mean, I don't know how comfortable ARB is going to feel receiving a project that was approved by this commission that, you know, the kind of permeability that I'm picturing could result in a reduction in the number of parking spaces. And I just question how comfortable they're going to feel moving forward and reducing the allotted number of spaces.
I guess I would assume that they won't be able to do that, right? So it would have to be a change in permeability in such a way that no spaces are lost.
Yeah, and the goal of permeability is not just visual; it's access points within the space. From my perspective, so that's why I'm going to vote against the motion.
So Commissioner Perry, can I clarify? So are you suggesting that you want more points of pedestrian exiting and entry?
Yeah, I do, and my thought is that they should be in different locations in order to make that I mean, they should be in different locations in general around the building, or additional locations. Plus, they will serve, I think, an important role on that north elevation,
Okay.
giving it a face.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I will point out that there was I don't believe that the applicant actually talked about all the points of at least based on this pedestrian circulation plan that they provided to us. There were more points of exiting and entry for pedestrians than they talked about during their presentation.
Yeah, I noted that as well. I looked at their diagram, and if we want to go over what they are again, that's fine with me.
Okay. Okay, I wanted to add, I wanted to propose an amendment, which was just this idea that we talked about of setting back the building on 26th Street such that there was a way to connect those two open spaces on 26th. So Commissioner Fonda Bernardi, are you okay with that amendment slash?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, me too.
Okay. Okay, so I think we have a motion to approve with 3 conditions. Is there other discussion? Okay.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
No.
Commissioner Newbold,
Yes.
Commissioner Perry,
No.
and Vice Chair Anderson.
Yes. So we needed 4 votes. We don't have 4 votes.
So that's actually a technical denial. It's a 3-2 on an approval vote.
Well, I think
Well,
that that's what
yeah.
he just asked about before we voted.
I think we were at, because I thought you were asking about the continuance.
Oh,
No,
well, then that
I was asking about.
There was
about-
two motions, yeah.
I was asking about this particular item, that if we had the vote to approve and that vote failed, would we have an opportunity for additional votes? To entertain additional motions? I mean, it would make sense that we would.
Yes, unfortunately, it was in the context of the other motion that was made, and that's what we interpreted, and that's why we responded that way. So-
Did we not have a technical denial on the post office building? And we reopened the public hearing and we
There
voted
was a
again?
motion for reconsideration, yes, which you could do.
I'm going to move reconsideration.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Can we just do a voice
Vote
vote?
on the motion for reconsideration.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Abstention? Motion passes. I'd look for a little guidance here.
Well, you can introduce a new motion. However, unless the new motion is substantially different from the second motion, which just failed, you probably will not make progress. So you might have more discussion on what it is that will be needed in order to refine this third motion in order for the project to be approved.
Can the new motion be substantially like the first motion that we voted on?
Yes.
The motion for reconsideration?
No.
Or, I'm sorry, the motion for continuance?
Yes.
Yes.
We can
it is
remake any motion,
reconsidera- You
right?
can reconsider. To be clear, since the reconsideration was for this last one, I think you should just do another motion for reconsideration of the first one and then just clear the table. So to speak.
Can I make a motion that we reconsider both the first and the second motion, whatever we as our body determine is appropriate?
Yes.
Somebody want a second? that?
Second.
Okay, let me just be clear. In reconsidering both of these motions, we're not approving or denying anything related to the project. We're just
Correct.
Oh,
You're clearing the
reopening
deck, so to
discussion.
speak.
fascinating. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No, and abstentions, no. So the motion passes. We have cleared the decks. Would anyone like to make a new motion?
Well, obviously, I'm interested in having it come back. And if there are any that voted against it before, that there's some instruction or something that relates to it, then I would encourage them to offer it up. Otherwise, find modifications to the second motion.
Wait, say
So
that again?
would it be helpful if we made a list?
Commissioner Fresco, can you hold on one
I'm
moment?
sorry.
I'm not understanding
I'm
your
saying,
motion.
is there anybody that's willing to ask them to come back that before said no to them coming back?
Okay. Commissioner Fresco?
Well, what I was thinking is maybe it would be better or helpful for us to really list the things that are bothering us. I mean, it sounds,
Can I actually ask? So I feel like Commissioner Perry made very clear why he's opposing the approval motion. Can you share with us why you
I
voted
feel-
no?
I really feel like a lot of the issues of transparency and fluidity of circulation around the site and solving the bicycle issues which feel isolated and, you know, the possibility of moving a shaft. And I just feel like they're big building form decisions that I think we should kind of settle on the general form of the building before we release it to ARB so that they can do their magic. I just feel like there really has to do with volumes, that the volumes that we see from the street that are creating the activity, and creating that activity is a really important thing in this area. It's the first new thing to come up in this new place that we're creating, and it really needs to be right, and I don't think we're creating that
So,
vibe.
Commissioner Fresco, can you share with us specifically the volume, meaning you want it to have a smaller floor plate?
No, just along that facade, there are major elements in the way the parking structure itself, the core structure, relates to the irregular shape of the lot that creates that space, which is then used in this zigzaggy way with the addition of the office space and the bicycle. It's really not working from a circulation point of view. It's a really busy street with a narrow sidewalk, and if we really want that area to be active, it really needs to be remolded.
I guess I just want to make sure that if we're going to ask the applicant to go away and come back, that we're being super clear about what it is that we want.
Right. Well, we've listed a lot of individual things, but for me, and a lot of the things that Jason has listed are all things that I agree should be looked at. And I feel that the ultimate goal is that we want to make it easy and comfortable and useful and desirable for people to really use that Paseo to get through and around and access the bike and get to the train. And, when I went there the other day, I went through Bergamot and I came out the little back gate and I went around the front here, and I was on a bike and there's all kinds of stuff sticking out of the sidewalk. It's really not, there's no flow there to get to the bikes. I mean, these are all things we've already mentioned that I'm reiterating, but it just seems like it's not cosmetic.
Does anyone else have another solution aside from asking them to come back?
Well, I think they've heard the discussion, they've heard the concerns, and maybe some concerns are more weighty than others, but at this point, they're good architects. I'd say we let them come back to us, having heard the discussion, and give it their best shot. In other words, because there may be parts of this that are hinge points that we don't understand. We may not see exactly where the fat and flexibility is the way they see it, but they've heard our concerns. I think we've all been fairly articulate, and that we should just ask them to come back. And I think we have been fairly clear about the concerns, not necessarily the weighting of the different concerns, but in laying them out. They're all there. There's no surprises.
Commissioner Perry, would you like to make your motion again?
Yes. Okay, we're asking them to come back with a revised plan that reflects the comments that were raised about function and visual permeability. And I don't know, is there anything else somebody wants to add in?
Activation.
And then we'll flow and activation, and we will consider the what they come back with. So I'm very open to other suggestions on modifications.
Is there a second?
And just to clarify, that would be to reopen the hearing as well.
Okay.
Because we're looking at a changed application.
Correct.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Good. Okay. Jane, can we have the roll, please?
Commissioner Fondo Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Newbold?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
And Vice Chair Anderson?
Yes. Motion carries. We'll see you back at some point. Okay. Item 8, any future commission agenda items? Commissioner Fondo Bernardi.
Yeah, I have a brief one, and we've seen this come up over and over again, and that's that 15-foot first floor. We're tripping over that. We've had a couple of projects that have had to go to the mat over something like this. I would like to know from staff, what's the process by which we can reconsider that or make it flexible or change that line in the code? I just need some guidance.
Are you
Folks,
referring
can
to
you-
the requirement?
You can go
for
outside, please.
The act,
Your discussions can happen out in the hallway, please.
the actual development standard or the modifications to that? Because to change the standard would obviously involve a code amendment. And we are August 3rd. We are talking about issues of policy. So that could be something that the commission was interested. We could identify that. In terms of modifications, again, that if it's not in the code already, I believe we actually do have
I believe we
a,
do allow a modification
there's
for
either,
that
there's either
process.
waiver or minor modification process for that requirement.
Yeah.
But it's a limit on how much you can ask for.
Right. I would like to open it up to the market forces, what that height of that first floor is. And just because it seems to be coming up over and over again. So you're saying, when is our next hearing where we would consider code changes? How is that?
August 3rd is when the commission, you're not deciding for final, but just
Right.
discussing items that you would like staff to study.
Okay, so I would like to throw that into the hopper.
Commissioner Fresco.
We received a letter from Ken Kutcher about the appeal for the post office, that requesting that we put on our agenda that we appoint a speaker from this body to speak before council.
I propose that Commissioner Fresco go and represent the
we
Planning
have
Commission.
to agendize it.
We do?
I think we do, and then we have to appoint somebody.
No, I don't think that's true. We regularly send a planning commissioner on important projects to represent us. And I would ask
It
that
would be good.
you represent us
Okay.
with enthusiasm.
Oh, yes. Great. I'm so excited.
Thank you.
Okay. Forget
Any
the
other
agenda.
items? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Everybody.
Basically. It's not a continued, it's not like reopening the hearing.